Okay folks, this is it. I'm about to undertake my very first Mini ITX PC gaming build. Now I am a little bit apprehensive because I've seen some of the challenges that others have faced when building a Mini ITX PC, but I'm hoping some of these components are going to help me out a little bit. I've got the Fractal Terra case here. The fact it doesn't come with any case fans has been a bit of a concern for some people. However, I don't think it's going to be a problem for me, as this build is going to be more of a budget oriented gaming build anyway. In fact, the case is probably the most premium component that I've got. That said, I have purchased the low profile Noctua case fan here and also the low profile Noctua CPU cooler, which to be honest, I might not even need this. It may be possible that the stock AMD CPU cooler would fit in this case. But honestly, I would like to try and have this build running as quietly as possible. The CPU itself is the Ryzen 5 8500G, so definitely on the low end of the current gen CPUs from AMD. That said, I did want to keep the budget around £1,000 and I'm happy to leave room to upgrade later on, particularly with the CPU and the graphics card. The GPU is the RX 7600 from ASUS. Again, this is a more budget gaming GPU, but it does have 8GB of GDDR6 RAM and it is also a lower profile GPU in comparison to some of the monsters that you can get. So maybe a little bit more suitable for my first Mini ITX build, although it is worth noting that this case can house much larger GPUs than the one that I've chosen. In terms of memory, I've opted for the Corsair Vengeance, 32GB, DDR5, max clock speed of 6000 MHz. I don't think my CPU can support clock speeds quite that fast, but we should be getting somewhere close to it. Again, Vengeance is more of Corsair's more budget-oriented memory, but it's going to be absolutely perfect for our build. In terms of storage, I've gone for the Samsung 980 Pro NVMe SSD. This is a PCI Express 4.0 generation NVMe drive, which isn't going to be as fast, of course, as the latest Generation 5 drives. However, there was not really much point in me spending any more money on a Gen 5 drive because the CPU only supports up to Gen 4. This is still going to allow blazingly fast up to 7000 megabytes of read speed, so I'm going to be happy with that. And 2 terabytes is going to give us plenty of storage without requiring additional drives that I'm going to have to try and navigate into the Mini ITX case. Now, all of these components are going to work nicely in this ASUS ROG Strix B650E-I motherboard. I did have to update the firmware. I've done a video on how I did that in order to make sure it was compatible with the latest generation of Ryzen CPUs. However, the motherboard itself may be a little bit overkill for these components. For example, it does support PCI 5, whereas everything I'm using is max PCI 4. But that gives us options to upgrade later on. I do prefer to go a little bit more with the motherboard than what I need, because it just means then when you do upgrade, you don't have to replace the motherboard, and Windows isn't going to throw a hissy fit since it tends to tie the activation key to the motherboard in a PC. And all of this is going to be powered by the Corsair SF850L, 850 watt power supply. Again, more than what I needed, but honestly, that was the only stock that was available at the time. I would have been happy with a 650 watt if it was available, but apart from the fact I had to spend a few pounds extra to purchase this, it's not going to make any difference now going forward in terms of the performance, and it's not going to use any more energy just because it's a higher wattage. I am expecting this to be a great power supply. It is 8+ gold rated and also has a silent running mode. But I think that is all of the components. I'm a little bit nervous, but let's go ahead, get the case out of the box, start knocking all of this together, shall we? And if you would like to see me building more computers in the future, then please do let me know in the comments and subscribe to be notified of when they are uploaded. It's actually the next day now. Yesterday I said I was about to open up the case, but before I do that, there is something I want to do because of updating the motherboard. I want to make sure everything is working, so I'm going to connect things up, including the CPU, the RAM and the power supply just to the motherboard, along with hooking it up to a monitor just to make sure it is all going to work. Okay, so I've got the motherboard here on the workbench, aka the box that it came in, the CPU, the RAM and the cooler for the CPU. I've also got the PSU, but you can't see that. I don't need any of the other components, including the graphics card, as there are inbuilt graphics with this CPU. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the cooler because I need to read the instructions on how to prepare the socket here. And wow, yes, this cooler is very small indeed. So the height of this thing is just 37 millimeters, a very low profile cooler. I've not purchased any Noctua cooling before, so this is a first for me. So we're going to need to remove the stock retention module. And there's a few bits as well in this little cardboard tube. Okay, we have, is that empty yet? Some thermal paste along with the mounting screws and a badge along with, I think this is kind of an extension cable if you can't quite connect the included fan header to your motherboard. Even a small Allen key. Okay, so let's start by removing these retention modules here. There we go. I'll just check if there's anything on the back of the motherboard that I need to be aware of. There is a back plate, but I don't think that has any use here in terms of removing those retention modules. So I'm going to go ahead now and open up the socket for the CPU. So I can see there is an arrow in that corner there on the socket, and there is also an arrow there on the CPU. So I'm carefully just going to line those up, those two arrows, and yeah, you don't have to push down on the CPU. It does literally just fall into place. And so all I need to do now is close the socket, and doing so should remove the cover here for us. There we go. And so the next job is to apply the thermal paste. Now I'm only going to put a smidgen on, which is what it says to do in the instructions. It says if you put too much on, you can actually wreck the thermals with bad contact. So before I install the fan, I just need to see where the CPU fan header is, and it's right here where I am pointing. So it would make sense to orient the heatsink this direction rather than this direction. You could do either, but then this is going to be closer to the header, and I can also tie this cable up as well. And then this is the awkward part, because it doesn't really click into place, which is what I was kind of hoping was going to happen. So turning this over without it slipping everywhere, if possible. Gonna have to try and line that up. That was a bit of a nuisance if I'm honest with you, but I have got the heatsink and fan fitted. I did figure out a bit of a trick to get it done easier. So rather than bog this video down, I've made a separate video if you need assistance with how to get this fan and heatsink on the motherboard, and hopefully that will help you. But for now, let's move on. I'm glad that's out of the way. Right, so memory. So this is the 32 gigabytes, okay? Dual channel, two 16GB sticks of Vengeance RAM, DDR5, and I have two slots here for the memory on the motherboard. I'll bring the motherboard a little bit closer for this so that you can see it in action. So I'm going to start just by opening up the catches there. They don't open on the other side, and then as we push down here, it should lock in. There we go, and it pulls the catch back up by itself, as you've just seen. So same with the second stick here. Let's just pop that into there. There we go, and pushing it down till it all clicks in. There we go. Nice, snug fit. So now the next stage of this little test is plugging in the PSU. We are going to need the 24-pin power connector and the 8-pin power connector for the motherboard slots. Okay, so there's the 24-pin. It's a little bit dark, I apologise on the video, but hopefully you guys can see that. Okay, that's clicked into place. And then just over here we have the 8-pin, just there. Same thing. Just line that up and in it goes. Okay, so the power supply is now connected. Let's get a monitor hooked up. Right, so the computer's now hooked up to power supply, hooked up to monitor. I just need to short the power switch since it's not connected to the case in order to get it started. And hopefully now we should get a picture. AMD CPUs rather do tend to take a minute or two to load up for the first time as they go through the initial setup process. But what I can see is the fan spinning. So that's an encouraging start, and I'm not hearing any error bleeps. So that's also an encouraging sign. we've got a picture. It says BIOS is updating. Do not shut down or reset the system. Looks like it's restarting of its own accord here. It says it is now updating the LED firmware. This is a really important test, in my opinion, whenever you build a new PC. Before you put it into the case and connect all the additional peripherals, do a basic test here with just the CPU and the RAM. It's come up with a message I don't understand here. It's recognised the new CPU. It says that FTPM/PSP MV corrupted or changed. Press Y to reset. So I am actually going to just plug in a keyboard at this point in order to accept yes to the reset here. I might have to restart if it isn't detected, since I don't know if plug and play works with the BIOS as it does with Windows. So press yes to reset. No, it doesn't. Oh, yeah, no, it has. It's worked. Okay, plug and play with the BIOS, so that's helpful. This fan is silent, by the way. Absolutely silent. It is spinning, but I cannot hear it. I'm guessing it's not going at full pelt. Even so, very quiet. Well, here we go. I'm actually seeing the BIOS screen, and I can see it has detected all 32 gigabytes of the DDR5 memory. It's only running at 4,800 right now, so I need to have a look at that. Okay, the CPU fan is in fact running at 100%. That is impressive then. It is just that quiet. CPU temperature is 34 degrees. Not too bad. Obviously it's not under load at the minute, but at least it shows that the heatsink has been fitted correctly. I could actually manually boost the DDR5 memory speed, but I'm not going to do that because I don't actually know what I'm doing, to tell you the truth. I'll keep it on auto. Yeah, that's probably going to work best for the time being. It's correctly detected the Ryzen 5 8500G, which it wouldn't have even got this far if it hadn't, but at least that shows that the BIOS update was successful. So I'm happy to start shutting things down at this point, disconnecting the power supply and the monitor, and then we'll actually start building in the case. Exciting. Just before I install the SSD, I want to show you that I have actually repositioned the fan on top of the heatsink here, just so I could get a bit of an easier cable management job done with the fan header cable. So I think that's going to look a lot better. Okay, right, SSD. I have the 2TB Samsung 980 Pro. Again, PCI Gen 4, which is perfect because this CPU is PCI Gen 4 compatible. There is a second NVMe drive slot on this motherboard, which is located on the other side. Now, this slot here is Gen 5 compatible. The slot on the other side is Gen 4. Now, because Gen 5 is fully backwards compatible with Gen 4, I'm perfectly happy with using the Gen 5 slots. So there is the 980 Pro. And now with the NVMe installed, we can finally move on to the part we've all been waiting for. It's actually day 3 now. Yeah, I'm not exactly rushing with this, and that's because, first of all, I'm editing this video as I go, and that takes quite a bit of time. I despise editing with a passion, so the thought of having several hours worth of content to edit through all at once, yeah, not my idea of fun. What is my idea of fun, however, is getting to look at the case for the first time. But I do want to ask that if you are enjoying the build so far, please do consider subscribing. That would mean a lot to me. And don't forget to just tap the thumbs up button if you are having at least some entertainment value. So I've got the Fractal Terra user guide here, which I am going to be definitely using. I'll pop that down to one side for the moment. And let's go ahead and go for the big reveal, shall we? Oh, isn't that magnificent? That is absolutely stunning. Let's go ahead and get all the packaging removed, and then we'll start opening up the case itself and see what it is that I'm going to be working with. Okay, well, first things first, I do want to remove the side panels here. And I believe, yep, they just unlatch, and then there is a latch here which allows them to be removed completely. So that's nice and easy. I'll do the same with the other side. There we go. And I suppose we should also remove the top. And for the top panel here, there is this leather style pull. So I'm just going to give that a bit of a tug, and that comes straight off. I really like this Jade effect, by the way. I've not before used a computer case that is this particular colour. I chose this one mainly because I heard that the black model tends to pick up fingerprints really easily, whereas the Jade one does not. Okay, it looks like we do have our little box of accessories here, and they include a nice collection of cable ties. I'll be putting those to good use. A microfiber cleaning cloth, what looks like a 2.5-inch mounting bracket, and a collection of screws. So I mentioned this case is able to support large GPUs, including triple slot GPUs, and that's because it has this mechanism where you can move the whole internal infrastructure from one side to the other, depending on how much space you need, either for your GPU or for your CPU. To be honest, I think I'm going to try and keep things at their default values, as I have the low profile cooler and a smaller size GPU anyway, so keeping this in the centre is probably going to be the best bet for me. However, I should probably still go ahead and remove the transport locks, of which there are 4, 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. Okay, so I have this set now in the default configuration, which is number 4. If you do need more CPU structure, then you want to set this to a lower number, okay, up to number 1, and if you need more GPU clearance, then you will want to set this to a higher number, up to the maximum of 7. So according to the user guide, the next job for me would be to install a 2.5-inch drive using that mounting bracket that I showed you, but I don't have a 2.5-inch drive, so I can gladly skip that. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and remove the riser cable for the GPU. Now, you want to be careful with these because they can be fairly delicate, so try not to bend it out of shape. You do not want to damage this cable, otherwise you are going to end up having to get a replacement, and they can be quite expensive. And by the way, this riser adapter is Gen 4, so for me that's absolutely perfect. I'm going to be getting maximum speeds with my GPU by using the riser cable. A lot of these ITX cases only come with Gen 3, and you then would have to spend more to get a Gen 4 riser. That's not the case here with the Fractal Terra. Then there is also one screw just here on the back of the case on the side of the bracket. Okay, so that should be ready to be removed now. We have the cables here for the front panel. Okay, so that includes the power switch and also the USB-C and the USB 3 ports. Sadly, a little bit of a downside, there is no front panel audio with this case. And over here we have the extension cable for the PSU. Now the case wants us to install the motherboard at this point, but I'm actually going to try things a little bit differently here. I'm going to start by mounting the PSU. Now I will be taking the PSU off again probably later, but I want to try and start getting a sense for cable management. Okay, so there are 2 screws to remove the PSU bracket here. So if we go back to our accessory box here. Now what's interesting is there are some standoff screws here for the PSU. These are optional. They are recommended if you have one of the flow-through GPUs, for example one of the Founders Edition cards from NVIDIA where you have a fan on either side of the card. Since that doesn't describe my situation, I'm not going to be using these. And also important to note is you can position the mounting bracket on either side of the PSU here, depending on whether you want the PSU fan to act as an exhaust for the case or as more of an intake. So before I install the PSU here, I'm just going to make sure that many of these cables are going to be out of the way. And now I can secure the PSU into the case. Just a quick update here. I did get the PSU set up and installed, and I've actually put that cardboard cutout of the motherboard that I showed you earlier in place. Okay, I've screwed that down, and that has been a big help in just allowing me to get the cable management sorted here, so I know exactly what's going to go where once I've got the actual motherboard in place. So kudos to those on YouTube that shared this tip in their own videos. I think it has helped a lot. So at this stage, I've gone ahead, I've stripped everything back out of the case again. I'm happy that I've got some cable management now pre-sorted. I'm going to go ahead. I was actually in 2 minds about whether to install the motherboard first or the power supply at this point, but since the user guide does suggest the motherboard, I'm going to follow that and put the motherboard in now, and then we'll stick the power supply in, and hopefully it's all going to start coming together. That's the plan. Okay, whether it actually works out, I don't know yet, but that is the plan. So I'm going to turn this around, hopefully, so you guys can have some kind of idea as to what it is that I'm doing. And I have the 4 standoffs, which by the way have already been pre-inserted into this case, so I haven't had to do that. So I do need to try and keep my different screws separate here, or I'm going to get confused as to what is for where. And let's just go ahead, shall we, and plonk the motherboard in. We'll see what happens. Now, of course, the I/O shield is pre-built in with this motherboard, so I haven't got to put that into place either, which is actually helpful because they can be a bit of a pain a lot of the time. I'm just going to lower the desk a bit so that I can get a better view as to what I'm doing here. And indeed, it is just 4 screws. Ah! Amazon Basic screwdriver. I don't over tighten those screws, I just make sure they're not going to let the motherboard come loose at any point. So yeah, the motherboard is now in place. This is getting exciting, folks. I am actually making some serious progress here, and the fact we know that this works, we've plugged it in and turned it on before it was in the case, is, you know, just one last worry on my mind right now. USB-C. Just push that down so we've got space for the 24 pin. USB 3. And I'm hoping I won't have to remove that because those USB 3 headers are an absolute pain once you've plugged them in if you need to get them out again. The only other front panel header I need to connect is the power switch, but I'll do that after the PSU since it is on the other side and this isn't going to get in the way of doing that. I think I will just tie these cables down to make the 24 pin a little bit more accessible. Definitely the big difference with building in a Mini ITX case over a standard size PC build is that cable management is something you have to focus on all the way through the build. It can't just be an afterthought as it would normally be. So I have here the cable for the graphics card. I'm going to feed that through as it's going to be connecting on the other side. So I'll try not to get that caught on the other cables here as it goes. In particular, the power button cable. Okay, I think that's through. We've got the extension cable for the PSU itself. I'll stand this up so I can line it up better. And now I just need to turn it around to get the power supply actually hooked up. And you know what, guys? The power supply is in, and that is a really nice feeling to have that done. So I guess I can just go ahead and plug the connector in there. We'll try and bend that around there. That's it. Is that in? Yes, it is. All that's left to do is to turn the power supply on, and now we just need to plug the connectors in. So 24 pin, pre-cable managed. Just gotta get that to click. Oh, there, that was so easy. That was such a big difference, you know. Pre-cabling up the 24 pin with the print off that I made. It just made life so much easier. It really did. And that looks really clean and tidy. And now we just have the 8 pin here, which is a little bit awkward because I only have a small gap to work in. Nothing I can really do about that. Yep, that's in too. And I'll just sort of tuck that cable to the bottom of the case there. I've already pre-folded it, so it should fit nicely, and it does. Before we turn this around, I do just want to show you the cable management job on this side because I'm really proud of that. This is my first Mini ITX build, and so far it's going really well. I will just check the side panel is going to fit. Yes, it is. No problems there whatsoever. Plenty of clearance with those cables. Okay, so we're down to the home stretch now. The graphics card, the GPU. I've got to reinsert the riser cable and then slot everything into place, screw everything down, plug in the PCI Express power cable into the 8-pin connector on the PC. Sorry, on the GPU. It's getting late now. And then that's it. We should be good to go. I don't think there's anything else left I will need to do. It's remarkable, actually, having gone through all the prep work, just how quick this case is to actually build in when you actually start putting components into it. So the riser cable is going behind the GPU, and we are just moving this into place now. Slide the cables back under the notches there. Now I need to put the 2 screws in the bottom, so I'm going to have to just turn the case around to do that. I think that's going in. I'll try the second one. Yeah, that one's definitely caught, and so is that one. And if you remember, there's just one more screw to go into the front here to prevent sag, I assume. Yeah, that GPU solid in there. It's not going anywhere. Now, as you can see with the GPU, we do still have all of this space here. So we could have put in a much larger GPU, as I told you at the start. And because we have the whole middle structure in the middle, okay, then it looks like the GPU is quite far over, but there is room on this side to have shimmied the whole middle of the case over there, and that would have left space if we had a 3-slot GPU, which I don't. So there's no need for me to do that, but the case gives you options, which is wonderful. So I just need to plug in the Ryzen cable now. I'll try and see if I can get a better view for you guys of that. So I just need to remove the plastic cover first. This is really tight now, because obviously it's all built to just fit here, and then that just needs to slot into the GPU socket. There we go, just push that in until it clicks in. Right, I think we are good. I'll just have a quick look at that to make sure it is in correctly, but it's gotta be. That's not going in anymore. Yep, perfect. So last thing to do now is to plug in the 8-pin connector. There we go. And it's in. Apart from this cable, which I need to tidy up, this is the first time I've ever done a computer build and don't have any more cable management to do now that I've got the components in. I've done it all already. That is actually a really interesting thing for me. Okay, to be honest, I could probably do a better job with that final cable, the PCI Express cable, but for now, I want to get this thing turned on, see if we can actually boot. Now, of course, no Windows is installed, yes, on the SSD, but if we can just get back to the BIOS screen, now that everything's in the case, I'll be really happy. Okay, folks, are you ready for the big turn on? I genuinely don't know if this is going to work or not. First turn on since the computer is built. Let's see. Well, we've got power, so all of the extension cable setup and everything for the PSU is definitely working. The PSU fan was spinning, but now it's stopped. That's fine. The CPU fan is still spinning. And I've got picture. I've got BIOS. Guys, it is working. Woo! Let me just make sure that the SSD has been detected. Yes, it has. The 980 Pro 2 terabytes. We've got both DIMM slots occupied with the 16 gigabyte sticks each. I do have the HDMI now plugged in to the discrete GPU, the Asus 7600. So I know that is at least giving us a picture. Guys, I think it's ready to start installing Windows. I am really chuffed so far. So I'm going to get Windows installed now. And then I'm going to run a couple of tests and we'll see how the PC performs. How does that sound? Yeah, Windows just loading for the first time here. And now, Windows installed fine apart from one thing, and that was when it came to setting up the network during the Windows installation process. For some reason, with Windows 11, it insists you have an internet connection. And that's all well and good until you don't. Yeah, for whatever reason, the drivers for both the Wi-Fi and the LAN on the Asus motherboard here were not detected at all, which meant I couldn't go any further. I couldn't proceed. I couldn't select a network because there wasn't any, and the button to move on was greyed out and there was no option to continue without internet. So it was a bit of a faff. I had to end up going onto the command prompt, typing in a command that would then allow me to bypass that screen and then install Windows without an internet connection, and then download the drivers on another computer and then put them onto a USB stick in order to install them. That was probably one of the biggest faffs of the whole build, and I'm not sure why the Asus drivers were not detected by Windows during install. Really annoying. But apart from that, I think the build went very well. Now, my son mostly plays Minecraft, and this build handles that with no problems whatsoever. We were getting hundreds of FPS in our tests, and CPU temps into the 60s. I think is perfectly acceptable with this build, bearing in mind that we are using the low profile cooler, and also I couldn't fit the exhaust cooler in that I did want to put in because of the PSU. Now this case is designed to not have any real additional cooling in it. That's why it's vented all the way around. You're not going to want to overclock heavy, and of course we're not overclocking here. But honestly, temps have been definitely acceptable and definitely within a healthy range. He did fire up Fortnite as well, and on epic settings, which is like the highest settings, we were getting really good frame rates in the 70s and even the 80s. And then by dropping the settings down to medium, then the frame rates were bumped up to in the early hundreds. And that is at 1920 by 1080p resolution. With this CPU and GPU combo, I think you could healthily game at 1440p, but you may have to reduce some settings. But it's not just about gaming. My son will be doing a lot of productivity on this in terms of schoolwork. He likes coding, and the NVMe drive is very fast, so it's going to be a huge aid to him, and that 2 terabytes of storage is going to be more than sufficient. And perhaps the final thing I want to just mention is the fact that this build is so quiet. Okay, I couldn't even hear it personally, even when we were pushing higher frame rates in our gaming tests. So yeah, really impressed with that, despite the fact that CPU temps were still respectable. And finally, the case. Not only was it a pleasure to build in, I have to say, this was my first Mini ITX build, and I felt like, even though going into it I was a little bit nervous, this was potentially easier than previous computer builds I've done in full-size cases. Just staying on top of the cable management, it just made it so much easier, and the case really does help you with that. But not only was it easy to build in, the design of this case is absolutely fantastic. Perhaps one of the best cases I have ever seen in the flesh. I love the colour here, especially the contrast it gives with the wood accented panel at the bottom. But folks, I think that pretty much covers everything. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey as I built my very first Mini ITX PC. I'm going to hand this over to my son now. I think he's going to be really happy with it. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If you have, please do remember to just hit the thumbs up button and subscribe, especially if you want to see more computer build videos going forward. Thank you again for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye, folks.